Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, how's everybody doing? Good, I hope? Yep. It's a good day. Matter of fact, I just finished doing my pre-recorded Halloween show that you guys are going to be able to see tomorrow. And I didn't do it live because, like I stated before, it's just been a crazy month with these hurricanes and prepping and all that weird stuff. But anyway, so this will be staggered, so this will be in the rear view. But yeah, you'll get your Halloween show. And you'll think, I think it was pretty interesting, the what we got into, me and Henry, as far as the Halloween motif. All right. It went beyond the Halloween stuff. How's that? Outside of that, everything is fine. Everything is, my animals. And I have a new, which if you look at the Halloween show, you'll see, I'm not gonna take her out of her crate. I found a little, that's my latest adoptee, a little black cat, which I've named Morticia. I'm guesstimating she's about 2 weeks old. She's barely getting her teeth. Her eyes are open, and I'm bottle feeding her, as in with this bottle. And she's the newest addition. My dogs at the beginning were like, what? So I have her in a little crate that I have. And hopefully I fed her a little while ago. So she's back to sleeping because, man, she's noisy. When she's hungry, she's like, rah, rah. And we were at a friend's farm. He has about 10 acres or so. And she was wandering inside. He has a container. I guess at one time he keeps it as basically like a storage. And he was telling me that they have a cat that runs around every once in a while, has kittens in there. And we couldn't find mom. We couldn't find other kittens. I went in there, explored. And the place where he lives at, this kitten was going to be, they have a dog. It was not going to live if left out there. So guess what? It came out of there at the right time because I was there. Push over. So yeah, so Morticia. I mean, what else are you going to call a black cat? Found around Halloween. So yeah, when she's not so noisy, when she's hungry, I'll bring her in so everybody can see her. Oh no, don't say that I said something and now you're gonna be like making noise. So anyway, the besides that, everything is I hate to say it. I'm gonna make one of my observations that it's like I go to all the stores and it's like, forget that Halloween. The Halloween is not, but the Halloween stuff is gone and everything is. And forget Thanksgiving, by the way, too. Everything's the holidays, Christmas, everything. The holidays, New Year's is like, oh come on. And I'm not kidding. I mean, so much stuff that I buy stuff, but like, how often do you buy your Christmas decorations or your New Year's decorations or your? And if you go to the grocery store, everything is pumpkin this, pumpkin that, pumpkin. It's like, no more pumpkin spice. No. Give me a break on the pumpkin spice. It's like, and then what's really funny is you could tell that this thing sells, but not really that much because after all this cooking thing or holidays, everything is on super sale. The coffee, the pumpkin spice coffee, the pumpkin this, the pumpkin flour, everything is on sale because it's like, why does everybody think that everybody's like pumpkin? I'm pumpkin. I mean, I like some things, but majority of people I know is like, okay, some just don't even like it, period. But anyway, that's one of those weird things that my point being that sometimes commercialism is getting out of control. It's like, are you really in tune with what people really like out there in the public eye? It's like, no. But again, they're all this, of course, as far as, when you look at it from the aspect of a retail business, this is, when a lot of them are hoping. And of course, Black Friday, let's not even go there, like, no, whatever. C'est la vie, you know, what can I say? But anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is with the guest today at Stories of the Supernatural. His name is Jeff Selver. And in his 20s, he started his own band, which had some type of success. He packed clubs in the thriving Toronto music scene. Then he found a passion for management and leadership, which led him to a Master of Business Administration, writing his thesis on spiritual values and leadership and the effects on organizational performance. This led to his work in banks and into the corporate world as a motivational speaker, teaching mindful leadership and sharing the benefits of meditation. He has been under the tutelage of a Vedic teacher for over 20 years, where he learned Vedic philosophy and meditation. When his memories of alien contact came out, Jeff began presenting on his contact events in UFO groups, sharing his story in detail and providing research and corroboration with other experiencers. He currently resides in Vancouver, British Columbia with his spouse. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Jeff?
Good, Marlene. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
I was gonna say, wait, you have a master's in BA, so maybe you see the other end of this commercialization push from a different aspect than the consumer.
Yeah, actually, that was part of my interest. Was I probably, was an anarchist growing up. I was a punk rock anarchist, and I really enjoyed understanding or learning about the system, if you could say, yeah.
Right,
and how it ticks and the reasons it is the way it is, and yeah, it gives me understanding for that. I like it.
Right, and it's like I understand. I don't know. I guess I'm the type of person, and I've spoken to other persons who feel the same way. Like, people like to enjoy whether it's some type of holiday, whether it's Halloween or Easter or Thanksgiving or New Year's or Christmas, whatever it is. It's like it's not shoved in your face. Like, give us time to like. But they're driving that thing, especially like for buying gifts and things like that. It's like right now I tell everybody, if right now I went to some of these places and I try to find something like gardening, you'll find it in a corner, so, behind the hidden wall, like all the summer stuff, because everything now is lined with fake Christmas trees.
Right. Well, they're pushing what they have to make money from, I guess, is the idea. Right?
No, I know. But it's like after a while, it's, I don't know. But when you're alive long enough, you see that trend where it's like pretty soon they'll have Christmas trees out 12 months out of the year, or they'll have, what is it, Christmas in July kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird. Even though, I'm sure that this is not paranormal, but the, how can I say, buying has become so different in the, so I have a background in advertising I did, where it's more directional versus creative, where people now, when they're going to buy something, they look it up, they research it.
Oh, yeah.
Or they look to see feedback.
Yeah, Amazon reviews. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Amazon reviews versus the creativity, creation. They're trying to create a need, like you're going to see the commercial. And even people, they'll go, that looks greater, but let me find out, is it really good? So it's a different headset, as far as people now with buying decisions and everything. As a matter of fact, I don't know, but go ahead.
No, I totally agree. I just Yelp is another one too, right? And with restaurants.
Yes, Yelp. If it's like if I'm looking at a restaurant or something, I'm always looking like, what are people saying about this place?
Yeah. That's all I do now too. I won't buy things until I see what other people are saying about them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you got it. And this is how it is. It makes it hard for salespeople. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes it hard.
Sometimes when I see commercials, like, oh my God, another commercial, and it's because if I ever want that thing, whatever it is, the widget, we'll say, I'll look it up first.
Right.
And like you said, I'll do research and I'll look if there's other manufacturers, and I'll look at feedback and things like that, and then I'll make a buying decision based on that. It's a whole different mindset as far as the consumer.
Yeah, we're evolving, and just wait till AI starts taking over things, right? It's
God, you know what? By the way, which everybody says, well, Marlene, what is that? I go, and I've said it before in my shows, as technology advances, AI, even now when we have things delivered,
Yeah.
you make an order at box stores, Amazon,
Yeah.
48 hours later, boop.
Yeah.
I think in humans, there's this thing of the attraction to the mysteries of the paranormal. In other words, we kind of want what's not definite, explainable, scientific, measured, scanned,
Right.
observed, because everything now is driven by barcodes and I think part of the human soul yearns for something that's not that definite. And by this I don't mean
Right.
made up. I just
No.
think that the mystery of the universe as a counterbalance to technology,
Yeah.
including AI by the way. And
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing.
Well,
That's why people I think go in the other direction.
so to tie that to aliens, to make a
Yeah,
segue,
well,
which,
see that and that's
well,
I think
what's
also
interesting,
that's right, go ahead.
they AI, right? So they have AI, right? And I've experienced it on craft. Other contactees have too. And you have to think what's going on here. If they have, so they have some kind of super advanced AI, but then they're also
Mhm.
super advanced in the consciousness. So it didn't
Okay.
obstruct them, right? It's like it's a weird. You have to think about their, like, what's going on in their evolution there, and it's a really hard paradox for people to put together. But what you're saying is actually something very right. As one technology advances us, it's almost like we get bored with everything that technology used to do, and now it
Right.
kind of opened up doors of, yeah, I would say the paranormal. Exactly what you're saying. We want to go deeper into these other. We want to expand our minds, right, and further
Let
and
me ask
further.
you, in your experience, have you come across the what they call the grays? Have you had
Yeah,
or
now
seen anything like that?
my whole experience is around the grays. It is, yeah, yeah. It's around this. I have other races that do get involved, but it's this species that we know as the grays. Yeah,
Is there any truth that they're biomechanical?
yeah. There's something like that. It's now
Okay.
here's it's. I think we have to start thinking of it differently. Thinking, I always frame it a grow technology. So
Okay.
and then that consciousness side that we're just talking about, that paranormal. So it's
Mhm.
very real for them. And then imagine a scenario where they're growing their bodies that have
Okay.
integrated tech, and then
Mhm.
they can they move in and out of the body is phasable. It can dissolve in a phased state, and so they can do extra paranormal abilities with their bodies. And then, yeah, and they're like biosynthetic, but they also have DNA. So it's kind of a weird hybrid of physical and robotic almost. Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you or how's this? How old were you? Because obviously it looks sounds like you had recovered memories.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
did you have that contact, or how did those memories start coming forward for you?
Yeah. So the whole story, it's just such a wacky story. And I'm really grateful that there's enough other contactees who've gone forward over the decades that no one really denies that something like this can happen. It's just very new still to a lot of people. But so the story is that I agreed to an agreement with gray aliens, and I didn't know about it.
Mhm.
So it happened behind my life, if you will. And
Okay.
this story is that I had a very weird event happen in the year 1997, December of 1997, and there's nothing else. It's a consciousness event that had elements that don't match anything in scriptures. We don't
Okay.
have, cells turning into the body, turning into light. I wasn't even trying to achieve this stuff. I wasn't trying to go down some road of meditating every day and achieve something. So something
Okay.
altered me, and it had a message to leave my life, to go to literally abandon society. And it sounds, very mentally, challenged, I guess. But then what happens when you follow it, and it was challenging. It wasn't, I'm not going to say that I just did that and I listened. I actually was fighting and resisting it, but it was involved with my consciousness. My soul was involved. I
Okay.
listened, and then started seeing objects in the sky. And so there was like constant, interactions with orbs, if you will.
Okay.
And I didn't know that was alien contact. I didn't know that, and it was interested in me, and it followed me wherever I kind of went. And I was living the hobo lifestyle. There's
Let
a
me ask you, at any
Yeah.
point did you think either I'm going crazy or am I imagining this or
So no, because you can't, like, so I assume with you as a paranormal investigator, there's maybe like mediumship, psychic abilities get intertwined with it.
Mhm. Sure.
So you might have some random moments of telepathy or something that
Mhm.
verifies. and that's a personal subjective experience for yourself.
Sure.
So then you validate your ability through that, and if it repeats to happen, if it's repeated, then you say, screw you, world, this is my reality, this is real. Something, I'm connected to something, and I don't know what it is, but I know I'm connected to something. So that was happening to me the entire year. It was actually building up. It got exceedingly more repetitive, and it was visions, and it would be, premonitions and psychic things, and I was able to sense people at one point, and this was not something I was trying to achieve. I was self-exploring, but I was not going down the road of let's make myself have some kind of attainment or whatever this was. And so you do kind of think you're going nuts because you can't get anybody to relate to it, but it was paired with synchronicities that were messages, like not just leave your life, but my life had actually fallen apart as well. So it was a weird, my parents were leaving, my friends I disconnected from, I broke up with my girlfriend, my band broke up, like all this. I was in school, and all of a sudden I didn't want to be in school anymore. And so everything I stood for, I just
How old were you around this time?
Yeah, all the same time I'm having this consciousness thing that led up to these psychic type experiences.
And you hear that happens to a lot of people where they have like sometimes months or years worth of everything falling apart for them.
This was all happened in a month. Everything happened in my parents. That's why it was so much of a message. Everything and it's really hard to wrap even a spiritualist's mind that this could happen to them until you start going down when all the alien stuff broke out, and you start realizing people's alien stories are ripe with synchronicities, as if maybe the aliens are interacting with space-time in a weird way. And so that's what ended up making more sense. Never mind some of the consciousness stuff. I was able to finally pair up with other contactees, their type of experiences too. So, but yeah, so it was a very bizarre.
That must have been a rough month. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, well, I wouldn't follow it. So I was resisting myself. And when you resist yourself, there's a truth that you have to face, and you don't want to face it, and you're young. So you're doing everything you can to pretend that isn't real. And you're hurting your heart. In the end, you can cause stress for yourself and your body. And so I eventually, February 21st was when I left. So December was when it happened. And it took a couple months to really warm up to the idea of actually doing this thing. And when I did it, it was scary, actually. Yeah, it was scary.
Of course it is. Of course.
But I lived. And then that was the kind of surprising thing is, okay, I'm surviving. And then I actually had what it turned out to be a contact event. Within about 2 months, but it had there was a red light in the sky, but all that made meaning for me. Even though the memory was obscured, I thought something had happened. I didn't know what had happened, but immediately gave meaning for why I had left. So then you're like, okay, I can do this. If there's a purpose for what happened to me, I don't know what it is, but there's a purpose. And you think spiritual, you don't think aliens. You think,
yes, you're right. I understand.
I was in some astral dimension. I don't know what it was. And that's all you think. You can't even get there in your brain. And so that motivated me. It was kind of weird how that happened, but the contact was actually motivating the traveling and the reality of this new world I was living in, where I'd abandoned everything.
Okay. And you know what? Sometimes that's what I'm saying. I've heard of people saying, you know what, if certain things wouldn't have fallen away from my life, probably I would never have paid attention to this other thing that was coming up. Or now that I look back on it, if you want to call it, the universe was tapping me on the shoulder like, hey, look at this, pay attention. And you don't want to. And they said, okay, we're going to have to do it the rough way. We'll do it the hard way then. We're going to tear away all these things that you have around you, these constructs, whatever. Because this is the only way that you're going to pay attention to this other thing, which is the really important stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
So sometimes it's rough going.
Yeah, it's it's really weird. It really is. And part of my story, I think maybe why my story is unique, is when all the memories unraveled, the afterlife was involved. I'd actually seen part of the intensity of that December experience was it was a release of energy of having seen. Having this ultra-dimensional experience of the afterlife. And what's really weird is that now kind of putting the pieces together that maybe the afterlife might be involved with these entities in some weird way then ideas like this even make sense. When you start looking at NDEs and near-death
Mm-hmm.
experiences, you start getting
Yes.
information that people live lives that are planned to some degree. There's something going on where, yeah, you're
Right.
right. There's hardships might be part of that path, and
Exactly.
challenges to grow a soul. And the fact that the aliens would want to do that to me is intertwined with an idea that they were trying to grow me and or
When
push
did you
me.
start to suspect that this is not that there was an alien presence or that the source was extraterrestrial? When did that start coming hitting you like,
So I did have weird inklings about it when I was going
okay,
through it at the time. So back in
right.
1998. But I wasn't obviously supposed to have the memories, and was just guessing, and I didn't. And so I had read a book about alien genetics, and because the
Okay.
consciousness event that happened actually had a physical side to it, and so something had altered in my. I felt my body change, and so
Okay.
that's why there's no. I don't have any like Vedic scriptures or anything Buddhism or anything that talks about your DNA. And so there was a weird, though there was a consciousness side, there was a weird body side, and I found
Okay.
an answer in some New Age book talking about
All right.
people with alien genetics, as if like, oh, it was star seeds
Really?
or something. Was, yeah, it was a star people thing is what it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yes.
And I was like, why does it feel like that was the answer? And I couldn't find any other answer, and that was at the time 1998. But and then I was searching for answers, and I had a psychic friend, quote unquote, who I was explaining this event to, and then they came back and said, I had a dream you were abducted by aliens. What do you think about that?
Oh
And
boy.
I was like, forget it, there's no way. And I thought alien abduction was like, the maniacal version where you were taken,
Right, right. The
you're in
ones
your
that you
bed, you're screaming the entire time.
yeah.
I couldn't imagine what actually was behind all this. That it was, I knew these entities actually, and that's what's weird too, is that you can't, when it's pulled out of your awareness, you can't begin to comprehend what it actually all is.
Okay.
It doesn't. You don't have
Right.
the ability, and it was left practically like that. That was back in that friend had that back in I'd say 2000, 2001. And I lived a life where I buried all that. And so I didn't really have answers for what actually happened. The consciousness event being real altered me, and
Okay.
then it left unresolved feelings. And
Okay.
I tried to, I guess, just live a normal life,
All right.
living part of the society. I did I worked at
Mm-hmm.
banks and all the other stuff, and grew up and all that other stuff. And then basically started to feel unsettled about it. I actually felt like there were, ideas about myself or concepts built. I don't know how to frame it, but parts of me were in that still that I needed to figure out. And I
Okay.
still didn't touch the alien stuff until 2019. That's when I just randomly watched
Really? That long? 20 years worth of
20
let's put
years.
that on
Yeah,
the back burner kind of thing?
yeah, yeah. But 20 years, 2016, I started feeling settled about it, and I started actually
Uh-huh.
researching it, what actually was occurring to me at the time that make that happen. But I couldn't think aliens. I just didn't have an
Mm-hmm.
aliens in my head. And then it was a documentary by Jeremy Corbell that had me looking at UFOs on
Yes.
YouTube. And then once I started looking at these videos it was like a YouTube channel that has people's filmed anomalous objects, so orbs and stuff, and weird
Mm-hmm.
objects in the sky. When I watched that, the objects I'd seen traveling came back. So
Okay.
they were starting to be in the atmosphere here. And then
So,
that freaked
oh
me out.
wow.
Yeah, that's when it's like, why? Like, and your brain is just like, all of a sudden, you can't even make sense about why there would be a connection unless there's
Yes.
a deeper connection to something you don't understand. And so, yeah.
So and you know what I understand also during those intervening years, like you said, you grew up, you try to normalize or stabilize your life. So
Right.
sometimes it's the timing on is I need a little bit more stability in my life so I can kind of like try to understand
Nice.
this
Yeah.
aspect, which sounds as like totally direct opposite of the life you were living as how's this a normie lifestyle, like
Right.
job,
Yeah.
especially something in business.
Yeah.
In the back, you've got this area that you're like,
Yeah.
there's something there, and God knows where it goes.
Yeah, and I resisted it. I remember 2005 and being like, forget it. Almost like I rebel. Actually, I was rebelling. I went back into
Mhm.
music and I started, yeah, trying to live this weird double life of being a punk rock musician while
Right.
having the corporate job. And I was resisting those feelings, I remember just resisting it. And so, because I was in conflict for it, having me leave my life, and what it all meant, and so I was in conflict about it personally, and also the strangeness. There's just when something so strange happens to you, I was fighting to be normal. There was literally a part of my voice, a dialogue in my head saying, I need to be normal. I need my life to be normal. I need to be normal. And so the early 2000s are all built with this idea to rebel against what happened to me. And yeah, it buries it. And it seemed on purpose to create stability. I do agree with that. Yeah.
So let me ask you, as far as you remember, was your contact after you were an adult, or like some persons I've spoken to that they realized that it even started maybe in childhood?
Yeah. So, okay. When I touched, July 1st, 2019 is when I touched that memory. There's a whole process where those things started interacting with me. And then they kind of were like, hey, look at that. there was a telepathy moment, and they were telling me to look at a certain memory. When I touched that memory, it took time. Like all of a sudden, anyway, you proved to yourself the same way with the subjective psychic stuff. And I wasn't thinking aliens, but it started to be clear that something had interacted with me. And of course, all the flashbacks were starting to emerge, and they were contact events. And the first was the second contact event that happened in 1995 that came out then, but it was coupled with the one that happened in 1993. But then as soon as I felt the first two, I really could feel that they were in my childhood. And then all of a sudden weird moments of like, wait a minute, when I was a kid, me and my friend got lost. We got, basically the police were called for having been gone into this forest that our parents got panicked in, and we never came back.
Oh my God, that's
And
gotta be the parents' worst nightmare.
And then I remember like, oh my God, that happened twice. And then it turned out those were contact events, and all the memories are just obscured. Then there was a screen memory of a childhood seeing a truck driving backwards, and you think you're just seeing a weird thing. It's paranormal. And it turned out that was a contact event. And then, it was pop, pop, pop. Just everything pops open. So when it turns out after like maybe a year, or maybe 6 or 9 months of really unraveling everything and taking the time to really spend with it all, it turned into 5 childhood contact events.
Wow.
And then 16 was what I call the first contact event, because that's really the relationship started. The childhood stuff seemed to be them assessing and checking me out, and they took a copy of my brain and that kind of stuff. And so the 16 is the first, and that's 26. And the last one being in 2017. So they actually, there were several as an adult, and my wife was involved. And so she saw the physical marks on the back, and we were panicking, and I thought it was ghosts and paranormal, and I didn't really know.
Right. Because that's the first thing that comes to mind. Let me ask you, just out of curiosity, the boy that you got lost in the forest with, and I don't know if you ever where you almost want to ask, did he have?
Yeah. So it was a she.
Did he have an experience also?
It was she. Her name was Sheena.
Oh, a she. Okay.
Yeah, I remember her. Yeah. Or Shauna. Sorry, she was Shauna. And I have another friend named Sheena. That's why it's weird. Shauna. And no, it's such okay. But look how weird always these things are. I can't even wrap my head around how strange they are. I have a childhood friend I'm friends with practically all my childhood, and I had no contact events with him. She's a girl who is in a weird house at this, like the haunted house on the corner of the neighborhood. She's in the house for a single year. I become friends with her, and I have 3 contact events with her. So it's really weird. Yeah, and I never connect with her ever again. And I'm pretty certain there's something genetics going on here, and then the aliens zeroing in on people, and me and her together. So we had 3 contact events together. So weird. And I have no record of her. And then I don't know how to find her. I've actually tried looking. And then I do have a contact event with another friend of mine, and I've tried to get in touch with him, and he's not responsive either.
Right, you're always curious. Did they have? And see, that's the thing. I've heard of people, even as children, having these contact, and sometimes they don't remember. And sometimes when they remember, they don't even talk about it among themselves. Even as children, they're like let's. And sometimes people actually get, reunited with this kid.
That's true. Yeah.
And they finally talk about it, and they go, did you see this, or did that happen? They'll go, yeah. And they realize, I was thinking I saw this by myself, and it turns out that they both had an experience.
Yeah.
But, so, and I think that's normal sometimes when you're scared, especially if you're a kid. You don't want to even talk about that. You're just like,
I'm pretty convinced that contact is happening in another part of our consciousness. So it's real, it's physical.
Right.
But you're in the way the mind, the reason their mind is obscured, the reason you have a one life and there's a whole other life, is that they're splitting the awareness, not splitting the awareness. I'm actually convinced the human awareness is a lot more in depth than we think it is, and that they're accessing another frequency of the human awareness or another part.
Okay.
And then that's uncomfortable for people, so they actually don't want to look at it. You have a ton of weird phenomena, a ton of weird scenarios of two people side by side seeing a UFO. The other person just forgets about it. The week later,
yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, the week later you come back, you say, "Hey, that UFO," and the person's like, "What UFO?" And you're like, "You and me were talking about a UFO. We both saw it." And the guy's like, "I don't remember what you're talking about." Yes. That is so common. It happened to me in the way some of these memories have occurred, where the aliens were interjecting in my life, and then I'd forgotten that event had occurred. So it's like a weird thing where I'm convinced it's internal. Your brain is the one saying, "I don't want to look at that," because it's your own awareness that they open up, and then you're uncomfortable of what all that means, and the bigger self. And if you're rejecting yourself, you just block it out. And,
and I know a lot of people don't realize it, but your brain will, for lack of a better word, will try to keep you sane.
Yes.
Even if it has to repress the memory to keep you sane.
It'll fight. It'll definitely, you got it. There's a whole this is like, people talk disclosure, like this is where some of it goes. Because it's actually, it's fracturing our sense of reality.
Yes,
and
it is.
We are in a simulation. We are in a matrix type of thing going on here, and it starts interacting with that. So then, if you are unstable and you don't have any kind of faith in energy or anything like that, your brain is going to be rejecting it as fast as it can. Actually, yeah.
Well, they've because I think besides the obvious, it's like, okay, then what else out there that is supposedly fictional can actually be like
real?
Vampires, cryptids. I mean, what else is out there? Loch Ness monster. All these things make you think, what else have I always learned are just like a movie plot?
Yeah.
Or something like, and then it's like, what I call is that it makes the horizon becomes fuzzy.
Yeah.
As in. And it depends on the personality. Some people can handle it better than others. And some people, like you said, sometimes when they're older, it's like when your brain decides, your mind decides, now you can handle that memory, what you experienced. Right. And by the way, some people never remember things their entire lives because they just never, their mind realizes you should never remember this.
Right. Yeah, it's not part of their path. Yeah, I agree.
No.
And it would be too much energy to unravel that thing. I agree with that. Totally.
Yes. Everybody's got personality style that is different. We're all complex, but we're simple at the same time. But not everybody handles things, especially if something happens when you're a kid.
Yeah.
That you're like, wow, little kids, they like to feel like safe. How's this?
Yeah.
As an adult, because let's face it, when you're a child, you're dependent on others to keep your world regular. But so now, like you were saying, now you're like, basically sounds like you're exploring this contact. That in your experience, the contact that you're getting, is it friendly? Is it more just observation? What is it?
So are you talking presently?
Yeah. Now that you've gotten,
it is definitely friendly. It is now. Okay. I think friendly is a good word, but I think we do have to think of a species that is big picture. So a big picture about a human's life. So like they know the outcome. So it being hard on you isn't a problem for them. So then they're like, yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about it. And you're like, no, emotionally, this is important. And so they almost like, I guess, a spirit guide. I guess maybe I hear about these kind of frame of reference from people having spirit guide interactions, and that would be this case here, kind of like a master, like kind of disinterested in your pettiness, but then But when you're emotionally mature about something, they actually really do interact with you, and there it can be love. It can actually be very loving.
Well, it's like when you're 15 and you fall in love, and it's like the end of the world when they break up with you, and then when you're an adult, you're like, that was stupid.
Yeah,
You know,
I got my
because
parents involved and yelled at them for it or something. Yeah, you got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's exactly like that, and it's very loving, and uh, we'll direct. Actually, we'll give guidance and we'll direct, and it's very odd. It turned into a but it's only around like it turned into a spiritual guide, but only around this kind of content. Like it doesn't involve itself with my personal life.
mm-hmm.
So if I have a problem with a friend or something, it's like kind of disinterested. But when it comes to this content and in general about it, she's pretty much like a friend. It's really weird.
Okay,
And
so
then
it's just a she.
it's the main great alien I dealt with, and I call her the elder, and
Okay.
yeah, and so she is still a constant present in my life, and she appears, she shows up, and other people have seen her, and other people have interacted with her, yeah, and as
Really?
a paranormal entity, yeah, but she's
Let me ask you that.
definitely
How was that first time that you actually saw something?
um because do you mean because the first time I would have seen it would have been well when I was traveling, you just don't know, so you kind of
Okay.
when you're left in the what was that that's
Uh-huh.
it, you leave it in this weird state with your mind. And
Right.
then when I started having the interactions here presently, I was marveled by it, but I think I was also in a state of like, what's going on? What's the
Okay.
connection? And the more it showed its, eventually there were undeniable events that showed themselves. And yeah,
Okay.
you are in a state of like awe about it, but it's tied with what happened. So
Okay.
it is a state of awe. But I mean, and she has done things that have done nothing but break in my brain about what can be observed, and
Okay.
and like she manifested angel hair in front of me, right? So
Right, right. And I guess my question is when it went from being memories to something and then you're realizing, okay, this has got an extraterrestrial type of origin to all of a sudden you're actually seeing something that you identify as female.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That
communicates, yeah,
it's not that it's abstract. It's abstract, but not really because now she has an identity. How's that?
yeah, that's right, yeah, totally. And yeah, and it's okay. I think the big back picture is that I'm linked to them. So then that's
Okay.
why she's interested in me. So there's like, it's not that I'm
Okay.
just a person. So like the
Okay.
whole backstory is that apparent for them, I have their genetics, and there is things in the contact events that prove that to me. And so
Okay.
so she considered me one of theirs.
Okay.
So it's a weird thing, but
Sure.
for the human, and I have a human mind, that's the MBA guy that's like, wait, what? And
Right.
then but then all of
Right.
a sudden it starts explaining everything. So then you're like, okay. And then when I really unravel those memories, there are distinct moments of her showing me I have their genetics, and that this is
Mm-hmm.
why there's a backstory here, and why I was involved with them as a kid, and all those kind of things. So there's a link going on. They explain some details about the linkage and how I'm linked up with them, and that
Okay.
this thing that we did together, which is what it turned out to be, this consciousness event that was a mystery for me, was actually something we agreed to together, and I was involved in.
Okay.
They wanted to observe me from the inside, so they were actually linked up to me, and with tech
Okay.
and her consciousness and a whole bunch of wackiness, and so that adds to the relationship I have now. So
Right.
it actually answers why there's this prolonged relationship. And even with something maybe like a spirit guide or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, you end up kind of having a bit of maybe not ego, but you get scared that okay, I love seeing this material, but if so I do something wrong, like I don't know, I have a drink of beer or I get drunk.
Right, exactly.
Is
Yeah,
she
like if I
never going
get
to be around
drunk
again?
and
Yeah, is
yeah,
she going
it's
to be
like
gone? And like, if I done something immoral, will she
yeah, yeah,
leave?
yeah,
And she
yeah.
never leaves. That's the one kicker, is that I'm linked to her. She does go away, which is really strange. It's neat how
Right.
something is going on here where she might go away for 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden she shows
Right.
up and she's here every night again. So there is a physical
Right.
entity that's leaving and coming back. Very weird.
Okay.
I love it, actually. It's fun to explore.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
because let me
think,
tell you something.
yeah, go ahead.
The that thing about like, for lack of a better word, the ever seeing eye for
Yeah.
humans, it kind of
Yeah.
wigs you out after a while. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Am I being
And
observed all the time?
yeah, yeah, you got it. And she actually consoled that by trying to be like, hey, I also have not human, but she has to maintain a body. And
Right.
so, yeah, you're like, I'm going to have a shower. Please don't watch me. And then in the
Right.
end, you're like, oh, she's like, oh, well, I have, that's not a big, like, she doesn't care about
Right.
these
Like
things.
that.
And so you're right. There is an every seeing eye element to this. It's kind of funny to say that, but it is true. Yeah, it's hilarious. And she addressed
Did
it
she ever
actually
told you
early on.
what her origins are? I mean, as far as where they're from?
Yeah, yeah, she did. She did actually. And it's matching an FBI document. I'll be presenting. I have a video that's just about to be released.
Really?
Yeah, they're from a an Earth that's in the
Mm-hmm.
future in another timeline in a
Okay.
paranormal dimension.
Okay. Like a
So yeah,
parallel universe kind of thing?
it's kind of like a parallel universe thing, but a parallel like an Earth entanglement, like you know how in quantum entanglement,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a planet
Yes.
entanglement. It's like kind of what it is, and
Okay.
it's like it's an ethereal Earth. So it seems to be have a physicality, but they're like plasma entities. That's what it's kind of like.
Okay.
They're plasma entities, yeah. And there's and I guess I've really zeroed. I did a whole paranormal, uh, you know, I went down the paranormal research for a bit to understand this because she was
Okay.
being paranormal with me, and time is really linked with paranormal activity, right?
Yes.
The idea that images, moments are frozen in time and they repeat themselves centuries later, is a very weird phenomenon, and so time is intertwined with the paranormal, and that seems to be
Right. So
playing out
for
here.
her, let me ask you. So basically,
Yeah.
and I imagine she's like humanoid in appearance then? If she's,
She's a gray alien. Yeah,
oh, okay, okay, okay,
she's a gray alien. That's what she is. She's the thing we call gray aliens is what she is. Yeah,
okay,
yeah, and
okay,
she's originated from a paranormal dimension. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No, the
Now
reason why
she
I asked
actually.
is
I'll
that
keep
you were
going.
saying like a parallel Earth, and I was thinking, futuristic
Yeah,
parallel,
yeah.
but okay, in
No,
that version,
there's no. So, these guys are not humans, and it's an
okay,
alternate reality Earth is what it is. It's an Earth that never had
okay,
humans is what it is. So,
okay, all right,
yeah, it never had humans, and so there is information coming out now where a whistleblower analyzed one of these bodies and he put it on
mm-hmm,
Reddit, and all that information matched my stuff. And so, yeah,
okay,
they're not humans, but they are single celled organisms. They're like uh, they're like invertebrates in the sense
okay,
that they're asexual cell structure. So
okay,
they don't replicate through sex. They replicate through actually putting themselves in test tubes, and that's
like
what
what,
she
like
showed
cell
me.
division, like maybe like an amoeba or
Yeah, I guess like a worm, that kind of thing. Yeah, like
yeah,
worms and
okay,
stuff. Yeah.
all right,
So they have that type of cell structure, and that's what
okay,
this all matched my contact event. And but at the same
okay,
time, those bodies that guy analyzed, they're not human. They have just like a single, like there's nothing that replicates the internals of a human, and that's what I always knew too, that they weren't humans. These aren't humans. So they do kind of act like you, or they act like they're from an Earth because they also seem to be
okay,
nature spirits. Like they really intertwine with nature. It's a very
okay,
interesting twist, and so it's answering a lot. Actually, it answers why they have the nature connection, why they aren't really humans, but we do hear about a future. There's a time involvement here going on, and the
okay.
paranormal, because they really do seem to be everyone contactee I know has paranormal activity. So yeah, it all kind of
Yeah,
adds up.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
That some people, and now some people are coming around to paranormal events tied into UFO or extraterrestrial experiences.
yeah, it's
Usually
all
before people thought it was two separate things.
yeah. Yeah, it's in fact for me it's all the same.
Yeah.
She'll show herself. So I actually have a couple videos, and so I film her. I film the
Mm-hmm.
craft, and I think it's her. I do feel like it's her. And
Okay.
then it's almost like when the craft goes away, she'll
Right.
come. She'll be here. She'll be in the environment in like in a
Okay.
consciousness form, and then she's communicating with me about why she did that, or so. Yeah, it's as if once she disappears, she can shows up to my room, but as a parent, something I can feel like in a mediumship kind of style, and she'll
Okay.
communicate with me through it. So it's fully interlinked, the sightings, and then these entities can be invisible. It's no big deal for them. Yeah.
So do you think that she basically, she's like you said, she comes and she goes, and what does she do? Like check in on you, like everything okay?
Well, I'm speaking publicly a lot, and they actually they don't guide it. They can guide it
Mm-hmm.
though. Yeah, they can guide what I'm talking about, not what I'm talking about, but what's happening to me publicly. And
Okay.
yeah, so as a public contactee who speaks publicly at the book and everything, and yeah,
Right.
she is definitely watching. They're watching, and they have not liked me talking about things at times, and other.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, they don't. I went down the missing 411 road at one point to understand that because
Mm-hmm.
all my contact events are out in nature, and they turned out to have crossovers with missing 411. So
Okay.
I had to know about that. I had to understand that, and they didn't like that I went down that road and stuff like that. But I always try to rectify it and be like, well, I'm gonna say this, then how's that? And I'll
Right,
keep
right,
doing it
because
because I want to do it. And
it
but
almost
then
sounds like also they're also giving you free will, kind of the free will kind of
total
deal.
free will, total free will. There's no control here, none whatsoever.
Right.
It's friend, it's guide, is what it is. Yeah, and as a guide will do, hey, you make your own choices. We gave you
Right.
all this. Now you make your choices about how you handle it, and that's how it's played out. And it's all, and I get rewarded. If I talk about them, or I push to talk about them somewhere. I went to a contact in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, I saw a triangle craft,
Oh,
and
wow.
no one will believe it because I couldn't film it. So it was like
That
this
happens.
private thing for me, and that's it. And but for me, it's like they're aware, right? So that's what they're kind of telling me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That, and see, this is the thing that, you know, especially because we're all running around with one of these with a camera, but there's
yeah,
just times that things happen, especially when you're not looking to have the experience, that there's no way to document it.
yeah, yeah. I have the films. The times I'm filming are the times they were slow. That they want, and
Mm-hmm.
it's obvious they wanted me to film. And then
Yes.
you got it.
Okay.
They can zip by. They can respond to you and zip fly by. And yeah, or they can be very. They can be distant, or they can also be very dark. So it's hard to be. So that black triangle. The funny part is, I actually was trying to film it, and it was against the total area that they had done it in was there were no city lights. It was up against a
Okay.
mountain, and I actually was focused on I was focused on the focus of my camera in the dark.
Uh-huh.
And so my entire energy was on the camera, and I forgot to hit record, or I'm pretty certain
Yes.
I thought I hit record. But anyway, when it all was done, I couldn't believe it. But there was some kind
Uh-huh.
of weird game where they didn't want it to be filmed anyway because it was so
Maybe.
dark out. And the craft was, I could see it visually, but it wouldn't have come up on a camera. So they are aware of those kind of things too. It's a very strange
Jeff,
game
you
of,
mentioned something about maybe something familial. Have you ever spoken to your parents or siblings or anybody that could say where you would say, wait a minute, there's something about my family? Because I've heard
well,
of that.
yeah, my parents have my book. Yeah, they have my book.
Okay. Oh,
And
okay. So,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, they just don't know. They don't get it, right? And I actually did the investigations. My aunt and my uncle actually had a
Okay.
had a close encounter.
Really?
Yeah, they
Okay.
had a close encounter in Winnipeg. So in the 1960s and 70s, late 60s, early 70s, there was a UFO flap in Winnipeg, and it was
Okay.
called Charlie Red Star. And there's actually a Canadian researcher here, Grant Cameron, who went all the way down the road with getting a lot of reports behind it. And my aunt and uncle were just a part of the sightings. They were just someone who had close contact.
All
And
right.
so I first I went there and was like, here's a list of how you know you've had contact. I need to know what happened to you. And did you
Mm-hmm.
have any missing time, or do you have dreams, or did you have an angel ever talk to you, or the list of all the weird paranormal things that kind of come out of contact. And very open, and were like, they gave me all the details about what they saw.
Wow.
And what they saw actually has now been filmed by other people in the same area,
Okay.
and as same described in the same way. So it's, I think, of the bright orange yellow craft. And so I've seen a film in the area that was the same color. It's very interesting. That happened, and then other than that, that's where actually I was conceived, was in the area of the UFO flap too. So that was
Are you?
weird to me.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was weird for me
That's
too. So
interesting.
then I went to my mom and tried to understand. My mom has psychic abilities,
Okay.
and what I'm finding with a lot of the research I did was that there's kind of a weird generational thing going on where you might have
Uh-huh.
a parent who has what I call out of control psychic abilities.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah, they have abilities that they don't like, and that they don't know how to manage. And my mom had that. She had what she called the death aura, so she could see death was coming in
Oh
people's
boy. Yeah,
lives.
that's the most unwanted one that there is. That they what I call the Cassandra effect,
Okay, I
where
that's great. I mean, I'd never heard of that, but that's a
yeah, when you
Cassandra
see
effect.
everything is like tragic kind of your
Okay,
clairvoyance. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's specific. Either the person had a family member who was going to die, or the person
Mm-hmm.
was going to die, and so she would see it around them. Is what she said. It was a black aura,
Oh.
and she could see it around them, and then she would investigate and find out, yes, the person has cancer, or yeah, the family member, the husband is
That
going
yeah,
to
I
die.
can I don't
Yeah,
blame your poor mom for like thinking, I
yeah,
don't want this. This is not
yeah.
a gift.
You got it, and it was traumatic for her actually. Yeah, she tried to repress it and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out that's a part of the history of contactees, is parents who have
Really?
psychic abilities. Yeah, and I went all the way down the rabbit hole with my mom too. She had an out of body experience when she was 14. That's the only thing she could ever say. And otherwise, she's like, no, I don't can't recall any dreams I had. And she
How about
listened.
her family? Her on your maternal like grandparents? Did
I
they ever?
no one ever, except for that close contact with my aunt, and my uncle, and then my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and who are they're open to it. That's about it. The
Right.
other connecting piece I'm finding is Irish. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, so a lot of I think practically all the contactees I know all have an Irish genetic background,
Interesting.
and that's me as well too. So my grandma was Irish. Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
interesting.
we have all the seeds, but yeah, they none of them have aware contact or know, or they just don't know. So they hear it and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't know what to think about that, and they're open minded. Actually, that was the thing. They're always open minded about it. But and when you look at some of the numbers, right? Is it Jacques Vallée who said his
Mm-hmm.
estimate is that every one in every 40 has had alien contact.
Right.
And it's not just the contactees, because every contactee has people in the peripheral. So the
Mm-hmm.
idea being that there's people in the peripheral who have contact and they'll never know they had contact. And it
Yes.
seems like that's kind of something that's going on here, where I can't induce people to know, or I can't crack I look to see if I could crack it and I can't. And so some people, they're in the environment and then they don't know that something is happening. Yeah.
I know some people. I understand totally where some people is like that's not going to be part of my reality. Sorry, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 and they'll
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
because it's just yeah. It depends on the personality. There's personalities that are rigid, and their world is this way, and that's it. That's just my life, and oh, you're not gonna get me to believe
Yeah. And I
anything
think it
like
would
that.
kind of, maybe they'd feel like a victim, so then they don't
Yeah,
want
sure.
to embrace that. Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, it's I wish I could help with that, but I can't help with that. I did my investigations around my
Hmm.
family and tried to do my best to figure it out, but that was about it. Yeah.
Let me ask you: when you mentioned that thing about the 411 missing,
Yeah. Yeah.
what the work that you were doing is that some of the people that have gone missing in the parks are due to alien contact.
So I actually did a full UFO presentation on it for a UFO group, because I needed to understand it. The first thing that happened was, I was public already with all my contact, and
Okay.
everything happened in nature. So as I said, I was traveling, right? So everything happened outside, and it turned
Hmm.
out that the locations that they happened in all had
Okay.
weird intercrossings with cryptids, with
Okay.
hauntings, and with missing 411. And so that what made me stunned. And some of them were shocking because they were in the middle. I thought they were in the middle of nowhere. I thought, oh, this contact event happened out by that lake over in North Vancouver, in Vancouver Island, just a random lake. I didn't think to
Yeah.
look at anything. And then I was watching Missing 411, David Paulides, and he mentions the lake, and he mentions the same area of the lake, the southern end of the lake. I
And you're
thought,
like, wait a minute.
yeah, wait a minute, you got it. So I have to. So I did all my research, and I pulled out his book. He's like Missing 411 Canada, and there were crossovers all over the place. And my deduction is that they are not alien related, actually, because when you investigate cattle mutilations, aliens are not
Right.
shy. They're not shy to show themselves. Aliens have been seen on the ground by police officers at cattle mutilations. The UFOs are practically always spotted. Lights or something in the sky is always spotted. You don't
Hmm.
have missing 411 cases where lights are spotted or orbs are spotted or aliens are spotted. But the cryptid thing is pretty weird. And it kind
Okay.
of lends to the idea that I'm always of the mind that the Bigfoots don't like some of the things going on out there. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if they're actually Bigfoots, but there's especially some of the cases where my UFOs crossed over with missing 411. It looked
Hmm.
like like a person or an entity or something didn't like the hunter, and
Hmm.
yeah, and they will and unusual circumstances, the person's entire backpack and everything goes missing except for a fishing pole
Right.
that's broken in half. So as if something didn't like the thing taking food,
Right. 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 And
and
this is
yeah,
that's one of the things that he points out in some of the cases where sometimes, and I think he did a whole series on hunters,
yeah,
like
that's right.
supposedly
Yeah,
people that are experienced outdoorsmen.
yeah, yeah.
They go missing and strange things. Sometimes, of course, some of them are never found.
Yeah,
In other words, this was not like a tourist that went off the trail and disappeared.
Yeah, you got it. And I'm totally convinced. Yeah, paranormal. And I'm convinced from also because I also went down that rabbit hole to research with the Bigfoot stuff. That these guys are paranormal. That they display such similarities to aliens and their paranormal abilities. They can turn into orbs. We have reports of that. We have reports of them entering dreams. We have definitely lots of reports of them being telepathic. So
Yes,
they are
I've
very
heard that.
weird entities, and I've also heard of portals opening up and Sasquatches coming out. Also, the manipulation of space of sounds, where people are hearing
Okay.
boulders crashing and trees falling, and they're not seeing any destruction.
Right.
And yeah, so
And you
that's
know what?
all paranormal, is what it is. Yeah.
In a lot of haunted house stories, or I mean, this goes back long time. People will hear, "Oh, it sounded like
Yeah,
furniture crashed,
yeah,
or dishes breaking, or
yeah,
like things were overturned," and people run in there thinking this place has been trashed, and everything is in its
exactly,
place. A
exactly.
lot of people have had that experience,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where
Paranormal.
it's unmistakable. It's not like, "Oh, I heard a little scratching." No, it sounds like everything is falling apart.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. I
Yeah.
actually love learning about it, and I remember this from a kid, a haunted hotel. I think I was reading books about the ghosts as a kid. I was interested in this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and yeah, a
Yes.
hotel where downstairs they were hearing the chairs and tables moving
Yes.
around, and they come downstairs and everything's the
Right,
same.
because sometimes you'll hear, and in some cases they'll say, okay, this is residual, especially if it's an action that
Yeah,
happened a lot, that repetition. In other words, it's not an active or intelligent haunting. It's just something that's imprinted in the tapestry of that place. But
yeah,
there's other times,
yeah.
like somebody walking down the stairs,
Right,
or
right.
but you hear of other instances. There's people that'll say, hey, you know what? In the other room, or in the attic or something, you'll hear like something being thrown around, furniture being thrown around.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, not like, and they'll run like, what,
So
obviously.
I love analyzing. Actually, this is where I'm convinced disclosure has to go, is
Right.
analyzing the physics of
Right,
of
exactly.
paranormal manifestations. There's a do you know the YouTube channeler Mr. Ballin? Ever heard of him?
No, no.
Storyteller. Okay, so he's very interesting too, and he has a really good story about
Mm-hmm.
himself waking up. He was at a cottage, and he knew that the dad of his friend who was there. The cottage was owned by the friend, and the dad had died, and a ghost was
Okay.
coming in every night. And he said the way he described it was so fascinating to me. He could hear footsteps out on the rails, so it's a metal clanking footsteps out on this kind of like walking platform that leads up to the cabin door. When the ghost came into the house, it still had the metal clanking sound, and you're like, what goes on here?
Yes.
With there's a sound manipulation thing in that
Right.
dimensional field between the physical and this
Mm-hmm.
other dimension, and the paranormal, these exactly this dish breaking. That's the same thing going on here, where they're able to alter or manipulate it, and Bigfoot does the same thing. Yeah, it's very, very
And you
fascinating.
know
I love
what?
that.
It's almost like there's, like you said, it's almost like either a recording. I've never forgotten this. This is one day I'm in high school of all places. We have a substitute, young guy, nice guy. You know how substitutes, it's like, okay, I'm a nice guy. We'll talk.
Oh
He
yeah,
starts
yeah,
telling,
really open.
how
Yeah,
substitute teachers, it's like,
right.
so he says that he starts telling us the story of the class, how he was from the Northeast. I want to say New York, New Jersey, somewhere up there. And he says that one day, it sounded like he was late teens, early 20s. He's babysitting his nephew, all right, for his sister. His sister wanted to go out somewhere. His nephew were 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember too, but at their house. So he's there, and he says, I'm sitting in the sofa with my nephew, and all of a sudden I hear, or we both hear, somebody walking up the steps of the porch. You know how they would, like, it's distinctive.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember me and my nephew looking at each other like, who's that? Like, they weren't expecting anyone.
Right.
He says that he hears, but the door doesn't open. The sound of the door opening, like the one like in the
Yeah.
living room where they're at,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
That's great.
closing, and steps walking across the living room in front of
Love it.
him.
Yeah.
And this was, he says, you could tell it was a man's tread. It was like too
Right.
heavy. He
Yeah.
says him and his nephew, they were like, they didn't move. They didn't say anything. They were the little kid, and he was, and this thing, I think it went like towards the kitchen or the back of the house or somewhere.
Right.
And he said that it wasn't scary in the sense that they didn't see anything horrible, but it was, he says there was no mistaking it. It wasn't like this was somebody walking in through the door.
Yeah. Yeah. And ghosts.
And I remember he said something like, "Oh man, I told my sister, you want me to babysit? You got to bring him over to my house. I'm never going to your house again." You know, that kind of thing is like. But yeah, when you were talking about like how does that happen? Where you get the noise, the sound.
Yeah,
but
and they do the same thing with visual too, right? A story I always love to tell as well too, with this kind of mastery of what you're observing. In Afghanistan, Russia had this center, this outpost, and it was in between this kind of in the middle of this valley, and then America took it over. And so there was a lot of battles happened at this one outpost. First Afghanistan, Afghanis, then Russia, then America, and that was haunted. So now like you hear noises and they're troopers, right? They're like whatever they are, Navy SEALs or something. I don't know what these guys are, and so they're not prone to believing in ghosts, and so they keep hearing noises. They hear bombs that go off that aren't there, and then but one of the stories is so fascinating. It made it into the New York Times. The guy's a sniper and he watches overnight, and so he's just keeping an outpost, and he sees, I think it's like dusk or something, and he sees a guy on the top of the hill. So he pulls out his binoculars and there's no one there. So it doesn't make sense. So then I think he pulls out the night vision and there's nothing there. He pulls the binoculars back, and the guy's he's now like moved 400 feet forward. He's down the bottom of the hill. So that doesn't make sense. He pulled the night vision back and there's nothing there. Then he pulls the binoculars back, and now the guy he said he pulls the binoculars back and the thing tapped on the side of his shoulder.
Okay, that's like time to have a heart attack.
Yeah, but the observation, it's so
right.
It knows what you're looking at, and the UFOs do this. That's why I connected with that. It's the CE5, the entity that I'm with. She knows what I'm looking at. She knows how to appear in my field of vision. I can be staring in the sky, and then she'll appear on the spot I'm staring at. So there's a we have the quantum that observation affects reality. So something is going on here with the paranormal and observation field, and again, just fascinating physics that I think this is where science will go eventually, is opening up these doors. And I think the aliens
and then you'll have people who will say, I didn't see anything with my naked eye, but then something is filmed, or the other way around, or you're looking through a scope or some type of camera lens and you see it, but then when you look, you can't see it. Yeah,
you got it. Totally. It's weird. I love it.
Yes, I've heard a lot of those stories out of Afghanistan and all these places where, especially there, he says that in some cases the land is very barren. I mean, there's not a lot of places for anybody to hide, to pop out like, hey. So usually when they see some figure, even off in the distance, and they can see like a human outline, they're thinking, okay, this is a regular human. Like, what is this person doing out there? And it's 3 a.m,
Yeah.
That kind of deal. So yeah, I know that a lot of stuff has gone on there that leads people to believe that.
Yeah, so in the military.
Like you said, some places get and it's just, whether you want to call it, the bloodshed that's been committed there, or it's an actual, and then, out there, they also have they have the belief in the jinn, and that's a whole other thing as far as some of the entities that are attached to that region of the world. Yeah. But let me ask you, has the contact you've had, have they ever told you that there's other species of ETs out there besides themselves?
So it's 26 contact events, quite prolific, and I interact with humanoids, and there is a mantis type entity that is on top of it all. Yeah.
Really?
So he wasn't a bug. He wasn't a mantis looking creature for me. But he ran the program. So by the 23rd contact event, I learned this was all his idea. So I'm part of this whole thing that he wanted or that he desired. And it was actually all his. And he is a crazy looking entity. I basically call it an aardvark. and an aardvark with eyes on the side and with big yellow
Okay. All
eyes. Yeah,
right.
just
I was
crazy.
gonna
And
say
then
what
like hair arms like
I was there with a mantis, and I'm like, I don't know what
yeah,
I'd do if I saw that. But
yeah,
what did you
yeah.
think when you saw that, Jeff? You must have been like,
Oh, yeah, okay. So I was in shock. I was with other humans, and we were all in shock. So
yeah,
I was with a group of humans on the craft, and well, this was actually in a
right,
base, and the sight of these entities can be very visceral. It's not
okay,
seeing something you're definitely seeing something you're in shock with, but that's his presence. So it
right.
was also his presence. His presence is it's intimidating. Yeah, it's intimidating. And there was no he didn't do anything intimidating, but he is, I guess, a bigger presence. Yeah. So yeah, I was in shock. Yeah, I was in shock
Mm-hmm.
and weirded out. And I've interacted with him twice only actually, and that would be the
Okay.
first time. Yeah, and yeah, so I didn't interact. I haven't interacted with them that much, but they're. I think I consider them extra dimensional. They're from somewhere. I'm convinced they're from outside of time. Actually,
Okay.
we're dealing with like such crazy ideas here, and then when you interact with that, it's a really intense
I'm sure.
in energy, intense vibe. Yeah, plus the appearance. Yeah, it's
So let me
pretty crazy.
has she ever this the female, the one that obviously is close to you?
Yeah.
Have she ever like said, are there expectations? We want you to do this, or all I want to do is just observe you, and
Again,
touch base with
presently,
you.
you're talking about
Yeah.
present.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, there's a instruction in the book,
Okay.
sorry, in the contact events. It's in my book to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
So they really
Okay.
wanted this information out. What they did
All
with
right.
me, they wanted that to be public. They
Okay.
have never given me any other instruction. In fact, I'm pretty certain I have the free will to end this if I wanted to.
Okay.
But I don't desire to because I got intertwined with it and that I'm learning about myself by unraveling it all
Right, right,
and
right.
still learning
In
about
other
it
words,
and
and
talking.
you're comfortable. You're not like, hey, this contact is not like, this is not for me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, there's no pressure from them. I literally could abandon this if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have to keep it up. I have to keep the book available. So
Okay.
this is the rule, I think. But there's no other rule. I don't have to be public like this. I don't have to do this. I don't. And again, yeah, it's all my own personal drive as I try to understand
Do
uh,
you think
what's
there's
going on
been,
here.
and the reason why I'm asking this is like, I know you've described her as more of an etheric kind of
Yeah,
entity.
yeah, yeah.
Has there been hybridization physically between us and them?
Yeah, so that's actually I think why they wanted the story out. So I'm
Okay.
part of that program. I was part of that hybrid program,
Okay. Okay.
and so I told you I think I said in the beginning of this interview somewhere along the lines that I saw the afterlife. So on
All right.
craft, and so it's as bonkers as that sounds.
Okay.
There, I think my story is even though it was this experiment on their behalf,
All
and
right.
I agreed to it. It actually shows or demonstrates a side of them that I think
Okay.
is missing in the public sphere. And so some people kind of like don't know what to make of it, and then most people go down the rabbit hole. Haven't had a single person ever call me a hoaxer. So
Okay.
then when you go down the rabbit hole of all my information and all my videos and all my stuff, I think they're like, okay, there's impossible. I think it's impossible to have made this up. You can't make it up, and because it's just so interlinked with all these other things.
Okay.
And it also tells a nice seamless story as if it's real because it was real. So, but the bottom line is, yeah, there's no pressure, but the
Mm-hmm.
information itself, I think, is the most valuable part. That hybridization is real, is coming. These
Okay.
guys are coming. These hybrids are coming, and it's spiritual. That there's actually that these guys' consciousness level is. It's like there might be an issue here where humans have trouble understanding them because we're so used to aliens being either maniacal
Mm-hmm.
or very maybe gentle, and we can't imagine a hybrid program being part of this stuff. And
Right.
so the idea that there is a hybrid program, and that the hybrid program can get very uncomfortable for humans, and I was fighting with them. So I talk about how much I like the relationship now. I hated these guys at one point, and that was back in 1998. But
Okay.
so it has everything. It has everything put into a single story, and I think that's the value of it. And then hybridization is 100% a part of that. And yeah, they actually, that was part of the instruction. Write a book and tell them we're coming. So
Okay.
yeah, and the idea is that there'll be a city, and so that's what she says at the end, at the 25th contact event.
Okay, let me ask you in other words, they how in other words, you're doing what they call the disclosure, because which is what everybody's always wanted.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
helping. Yeah, and that's what they said back when I was 16 years old, that you'd be part of this process in some way. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but now it's all. That's why I'm also into this, because it actually all makes sense. That the reason the reason I went through all that craziness was that this is actually very valuable to people now. And so yeah, I end up being part of the disclosure. As disclosure is happening, all my stuff is matching. So that's like, hey, I was public already by 2020, and that was before John Ramirez, who said aliens have alien DNA and human DNA are the same, meaning they can they're cross compatible.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
like, you know, we didn't have any government saying that, and that's John Ramirez. That was after I already gone public. So these are the type of things where my contact events are all matching and lining up with all the disclosure
Right,
that's coming out.
because the title of your book, The Rising in the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Earth. I'm thinking for them to build something on Earth, they have to come out, you know.
Yeah, there will be. I don't know. So I'm not like, I can't. I won't prophetize. But the end result is they're here. I know that, and how that
Okay.
plays out. They do tell me some things, but as far as like
Okay.
specifics, like I just know, and I didn't actually really know when I was talking about this publicly that it could possibly be our lifetime. I just didn't
Right.
know. I was actually having faith, and it turned out
Right.
that people are already talking about 2027, and that there's a
Okay.
deadline, a timeline, and I've gravitated towards it because I knew the planet environmental damage is actually one of the big problems about
One of
what's going on here.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
The motivators, you can say it,
Yes,
and yeah,
yes.
so it's the big motivator, and so this is kind of a part of the interjection is what's going, or the interjection is
So
what's
are
going on.
they, in other words, that's why I'm thinking, well, if they're going to build a city, I mean they can't do that behind the scenes. How's this?
Yeah, yeah, it won't be behind the scenes. Yeah, in our lifetime, I'm certain of it. Yeah, in our lifetime.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
one thing I always ask myself. God, I wonder if I'm going to be around to ever actually get full
I'm
disclosure.
I'm convinced 2027. I'm convinced of it, and I'm convinced it's we aren't ready. That's what I'm also convinced of.
You know
We are
what?
not ready.
But
Yeah,
sometimes I think though that if you wait for everybody to be ready, it'll never happen. There's
that's true
always
too.
going to be
But I
um
think there's some problems. I think there's some real big problems. I think that I agree with that. I agree with that. I think you know, there's like rumors that aliens were interacting with governments back in 1950 something something, right?
yeah.
And when you start, I've gone down some of those rabbit holes, and I'm actually convinced they're real
Okay.
now. And they did kind of hint to me that there was leadership communication, human leadership communication, and what it says to me, the bigger picture is that they maybe needed to intervene along, or were communicating some kind of intervention, and that maybe the government was supposed to involve themselves, and that the government,
Okay.
being a government, military, and da 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 da, were like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, this is a takeover, or this is a threat, and how can we stop this,
Right.
and how can we stop them, and I think something like that maybe played out here. So then they were pushing back, and
Okay.
I think the way they disrupt us is much bigger than I think most humans understand. Because you and me are
Mhm.
talking paranormal, so
Yes.
imagine we learn that all that's real. And
Wow.
yeah, it's not just a fairy tale that you die, that and you live. That so, and then you start having to think about the systems we all live to and belong to, and what the hell's
Yes.
going on here, and what the life we all kind of grew up believing, and then if paranormal is real, does that mean hell is real, right? And we start going
No,
into
I don't know. It opens so many doors, so
it
many
does. Yeah.
questions, so
So
many.
yeah, it's actually, and that's what I mean when we're not prepared. It's a huge thing. It's not just the technology, not just that we're not alone. It's
It's
this whole other thing that opens up that the human brain isn't really that good at
no,
computing actually.
and I know some people say, nah, people are creatures of habit, some more than others, but we
Yeah.
all have our construct. We all have our
That's it.
routines that make us feel
That's it.
good.
The construct.
And
This is what I actually come back down to is that No, most people I know don't like their frame of reference of the world to be disturbed.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And boy, is your frame of reference of the world going to be disturbed when there's disclosure. And it's not just that aliens are here, it's about everything that they stand for and what they're all about. Yeah.
Right, and there's always gonna be. I don't know. I can tell. But yeah, but at the same time, if you're ever gonna wait for that perfect moment,
Yeah. It's true.
and it might never happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes things have to happen, and then you just work your way the
Yeah.
best you can.
When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he said, "Let the dice be cast."
There you
It's
go.
like random. Like, let's see what happens. Yeah, that's what's
Exactly. And
going to happen here.
sometimes, it's not there's no such thing as the perfect timing.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think you're right about that. Yeah.
so anyway, Jeff, if anybody wanted for my podcast listeners, because I am going to have a link to your website on the credits of the show, if somebody wanted to find you, how can they find you?
Nice and simple. My name you see right there, Jeff Selver.
Hmm.
So just
Okay.
my jeffselver.com. So jeffselver.com is my website. Everything is there. My links are there. My contact is there. Yeah.
Okay. And let me ask you, are you planning do you have any other projects in mind or anything else?
Yeah, I'm always speaking.
Okay.
I'm always presenting. So I have presentations all over the place, and
Okay.
I have some fascinating past life awareness that was facilitated by
Hmm.
being on alien craft, and
Okay.
so from some fun things I'll be exploring there. So I have a workbook that was in part a combination of my spiritual path with my guru combined with what I learned from the aliens. And so I put some things together to help people explore, open themselves up to dimensionality actually. And
Okay.
so, yeah,
Let
I
me ask
have,
you, did you ever find any, I don't know any conflict between your Vedic teachings and having extraterrestrial contact?
not between the teachings. No, no,
No, right?
The Vedic philosophy is, I actually, one of the presentations I'm doing late November,
Mm-hmm.
is how the Vedic philosophy can help us understand the phenomenon. Yeah,
Okay.
it's this is the quantum field is what is going on here with the aliens, and they've kind of utilized this field and life after death and birth, like the birth and death life cycle is all part of this, and
Okay.
so is the paranormal stuff all opening up. And Vedic philosophy is a grounding into the quantum field. They call it
Okay.
Brahma, right, which is the aware universe. But all this stuff is all in there. The Atma, all the stuff I witnessed in the afterlife is all in
Okay.
the Vedic stuff. So there's nothing conflicting actually. In fact, it helps bring definition
Okay.
on how to have a deeper experience of the quantum field, if you could say. Yeah.
Right. Because I know that sometimes when we were talking about accepting the reality of extraterrestrials, whether it's a school of thought or religious beliefs, like they clash, like this
Yes.
just doesn't fit
Yeah.
in.
That's the joy of Vedic is a science.
Okay.
It's a spiritual psychology. So it
Mm-hmm.
is that's the key of it. You can actually apply Vedic philosophy to Christianity. And
Okay.
you can say, okay, the reason that they are so devoted to Jesus is because they have bhakti, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they go out and they preach their sermons. That's karma yoga. So you can actually kind of
Right.
understand what's going on here, and that's all Vedic is. Vedic
Mm-hmm.
is your whatever your mode is. In this case, it could be a guru, it could be Krishna. So they're not actually saying that's the savior. They're saying
Right.
you have a mode to connect, and then
Mm-hmm.
these are the methods. And so karma yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga. So then those are the methods, and when you understand what those mean and how to apply them to your life as a way of kind of deepening your experience, yeah, it definitely enriches
Okay.
your experience of dimensionality. And so I think that it's a science. It's a psychological spirituality is what it is.
Excellent. Again, thank you so much. Has been wonderful to speak to you. I want to wish you the best of luck in all your projects. And this is so interesting.
Yeah,
Again,
Marlene, thanks for having me.
everybody,
You got it.
no,
Yeah,
on the contrary, it's been great. And you know what? Hopefully, we will get that disclosure.
yeah, yeah. I
I know.
think it's
I'll tell
coming.
everybody, you know what? I'll probably go and have. And by the way, I'm not a drinker. That's what I'm saying. I'll go and have a drink, sit down, and go. Okay,
Yeah,
let's hear the whole story.
yeah. You got it. You got it.
It's like, all right, But yeah, I'd rather have the truth, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. I think a lot of people are feeling that way too. I think especially you guys
Yeah.
in America. You guys I
Yeah.
think you've been a
He's like, hey,
really
give me the
culpable.
truth. What's the worst I'm gonna do?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
cry, I'll hide, I'll go like this, suck my thumb, take a drink, and then say, okay, let's hear
I
it.
actually think
Let,
it's I think the new age community, and I think anybody who's ever open to paranormal experiences,
yeah,
I think we might have it pretty safe.
yeah, yeah.
But
I know,
we're not there's 8 billion people on the planet, and
I
a
know, I
lot of
know.
people are in desperate and other religions and things going on that might have
Yeah, I know.
trouble
I know that
understanding.
it's a time of this change, but like I
Yeah,
said, there's never always going to be
they
a
never.
perfect time where everybody will be on the same page. Kind of,
Yeah,
we're
agreed,
too
agreed.
complex. We're too like, I don't know, too different, and at the same time we're all the same. But
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
thank you so much, Jeff. It has been
yeah.
wonderful to speak to you.
You
Take
got it,
care.
Marlene. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ah, that was great. Let me tell you something. Food for thought. And isn't it interesting? He's having these experiences when he's very young. It sounds like, or younger, and his life is turned upside down. So he kind of has a suspicion that something's going on, but maybe the timing is not right. Let me tell you something. It sounds that's. Let me tell you something. I assumed that this had happened to him like a year. I was like, no, a month. I was like, what? Talk about things going crazy for people. And and again, sometimes that does happen where you have experiences and like I said, the timing is not the best, and you're like, I can't handle this right now. I know there's something here, but right now I just cannot dissect this. I can't explore it because other things are happening, and you kind of put it in the back burner, and then you direct your life into normie life. Getting a job, going to school, starting a family, getting married, all those other things. But always in the back of your mind, there's this thing there that that something is there. And yeah, and then there comes a point where you're saying, okay, now this is the right time for it. Because the thing is this, if based on what he's saying, this is a positive experience he's had. But if you try to, how can I say, have this positive experience or explore it, but the timing, if everything is wrong, it's like this is going to ruin that experience or whatever I'm going to find out about it or whatever the message is. And this is not the right time. This is I have to exist. I have to survive. How's this? Like in put food on the table, have a job, a roof over my head. Those things are important. It was in some way, shape, or form. It is. This is, and a lot of people will say, well, you know, um, in modern life, and it's like, no, survival has always been around for whatever you are. But let's go with the humans. Survival has always been around. You always needed, and by the way, survival once upon a time, many, many years ago, was a day-to-day thing. As far as a place to shelter in, depending on the weather or the season, having enough to eat to feed yourself, if you lived with others, if you had children, offspring, right? There was a time for humans where that every day you would have to figure out how we're going to eat. Are we going to hunt? Whatever. But even now, my point being that is still important. Like all living things on the, I gotta tell you, things of importance. Shelter, feeling of safety, having enough to eat, all those things that let you explore how's this outside of those activities to assure that hey, I know that I can go and sleep at night. I have a place to sleep, and that I'm going to be able to eat something. All right. And I think that um, sometimes, mm, and I'm gonna give you an example. I hate to say it, but sometimes we've gotten caught up. I'm talking with the technology part of this. That once we have that other part of our existence addressed, in other words, we have a place to live, we have food to eat, we have shelter, clothing, whatever. once up, you would think, okay, in other words, you don't have to spend your whole day. Maybe, well, okay, you work, but it's not this thing of like, oh my God, that would leave you time in your mind, in your daily activities to explore what other teachings, reading, expanding your horizons, going beyond just worrying about, and we're giving it all to this with our spare time. And I think it robs us because, and I'm not excluding myself from this, we can't become entranced or hypnotized with whatever it is that we're watching, okay, or looking at, or the if it's a series, when people binge, all this free time that we have to think outside what our daily existence is, which, by the way, what some people call is the daily grind, right? But okay, you don't, even when you do have spare time on your hands, you look at the TV, or you're on your phone or something like that, and that chance that you get for exploring outside of your daily back and forth, that chance just goes away. That chance just goes away, as in opening yourself up maybe sometimes to experiences like, well, in this case, what he had. Because it almost sounds that, after he got his life settled and years had passed, that he was really able to reconnect with that experience he'd had so many years before. As far as extrapolating who or what was it, what it meant, what was his role in this whole contact that he had, and again, the question of hybridization comes up. Also, what he talked about, parallel universe, which is not the first time I've heard of that, because we always think of ETs coming from another planet or another star system, and it might not be the case. If they're inter or intradimensional beings, that maybe where they actually, their origins are, and what he's explaining is a parallel Earth, kind of deal, which, so, and ultimately, the question everybody has is why do they want contact with humans? Why are they here? And that's, and I've talked about it other times. It's like, we always want to think it's a positive spin on it. But I think the question that hovers in everybody's mind, which is, I think, part of what, we were talking about, that people will wig out if disclosure was ever made, that this is like, that's it, it's there. Whether the ship landed on the highway or somewhere, whatever. It cannot be dismissed. The overriding question for everyone will always be, what are their intentions towards us? Because there's always going to be people that are saying, oh no, it's positive, it's good, it's okay, but then you have other stories of people that have had very bad experiences, either in abduction situations or contact. And then for the rest of us that haven't had any type of UFO or ET experience, let's face it, I don't care what you call it. Everybody will always be asking themselves, what are their intentions toward us? Are they friendly? Are they pretending to be friendly and really are hostile? Because, again, let's face it, if you've got a being, I don't know, a creature, I don't know what to call them, but at this point, that has obviously more advanced technology than we do, you kind of know, hey, you know what? We're not on the same footing as them. And here I'm not talking spiritual or anything like that. I'm talking here on an intelligence level. Because at the end of the day, whichever way you slice it or dice it, the intelligence level or the degree of advancement or harnessing of let's say humans' intelligence. This is what decides where you are in the pecking order of things. And if you've got something that has can travel through dimensions, can land an aircraft or something that you might not even understand the propulsion system it uses, or in other words, you're like, okay, I'm in kindergarten and this thing is like got a doctorate. You have to be stupid not to think if these people, if whoever they are, decide that they're not disposed towards us, what are we gonna do about it? Nothing. And I think that's always in the back of everybody's mind, this thing with the ETs and the extraterrestrials, as far as wigging out. Because it's like, okay, what if they aren't really friendly towards us? Or that, I'm gonna use, let's go to Hollywood, that series V, that's how they came, pretending to be all nice and helpful. It turns out that wasn't the case. And maybe they are. Let's say they're not here to eat us. How's that? All right. But again, our moral compass might not be theirs, because maybe they're just totally different. What we would see as evil or dangerous or they don't see it. It's like, we don't get it. We don't get it. And you're like, yeah, but that's me. And I get it. And I don't want to be abducted, or I don't want to be taken aboard a ship and have my my cavities explored, or whatever you want to call it. And they're like, oh, but we don't see, like, in other words, the framework of our morality that we place on everything, on other humans, you can't do it with them. And it's not like, because right now, let's say if you have an individual who doesn't fit into this framework, we call them psychopaths, sociopaths, the black triangle, the dark triangle, I mean, the dark triad, whatever, that. In other words, we know you are not within the normal human reactions, whether it's your mental processes or lack of empathy, whatever. But we know this is the framework for a normal human. And when you don't fit into, there's something that's off about you. Okay. Well, how would we ever apply that to beings that are not human? Even if, according to him, there is hybridization, or there is some type of exchange of DNA, I guess, if you want to call it. I don't know at what level, since I don't know. That's the part I'm not too sure about. Hybridization, if they're ethereal versus something that actually exists. I don't know. Anyway. But again, how do we apply a framework of what we know is right or wrong, good, evil, to something that we have no concept of how to do that? That we might see it as evil or bad, and they might be like he said, that they look at his scenarios in his life, and it's like, this is not important to us. Like, this is your moment. You're having a moment there. You're reacting. And to me, that sounds like they don't understand. They understand, but they don't care, like, because in their construct of their framework of how they behave or understand their world to be, those things don't matter, or they don't get. You almost want to ask, well, so what would you consider would be bad, or what would get you excited, or what would get you happy, or what would get you upset? What in your existence, or would make you feel threatened? But see, we haven't gotten there yet to have that conversation. But again, I think that's at the end what everybody, even the rah people with ETs, I think always in the back of your head is always the question: is this good until now? Could there be a moment that things change? Then for the ones that is like, I don't trust what they are, where they're from, what their intentions are. And we're going to have to accept whatever it is they tell us, because what else am I going to do? Call them out and say, I don't believe you? Next thing you know, you're on the ET's hit list. And that was interesting what he said about him, cross-referencing the missing 411 idea of all these disappearances in national parks being tied into ETs. And I wanted to explore that more. Like, why didn't they like it? You're talking about the truth. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of disappearances that have nothing to do with nothing. They just unlucky people. Sometimes people decide to commit suicide and they'll just go off into the forest and they don't want to be found. There's people that commit suicide. They leave a note. They want to be found, etc. There's people that go off. They don't want to be found. They don't leave a note. The mystery is like, what happened? And then there's people that it's accidental. They go in there, what we were talking about, the outdoorsmen, the hunters. They're practiced, but they have a heart attack. It happens. Their blood pressure goes boop, and they fall over and die. Boop, they have an aneurysm. Nobody finds them. That happens. It's not like they're not suicidal. They know what they're doing. It's just something happened to them physically that impairs them, and they died. Some of them die right there, right? And that's another thing. You're out in the wild, animals and the weather and everything, they kind of like your bones, everything is picked clean, as far as remains, unless they find you very quickly after. There's other people that are tourists that don't know what they're doing. Oh, not tourists. I could go, and they just get off the path and then they're lost, and they keep trudging around, and before you know it, depending on the weather, they die of exposure, heat, cold, thirst, lack of food, depending how long they're out there, and that's it. But then you think there's people that disappear really weird. Like, what was it that Polite says? Like, don't be the first in line or the last in line, or one of those things. Like the person's there, then somebody looks away, and then you look and the other person's gone. See, that's the part that it kind of leaves you like, what's going on? And I know having to do with the what he was talking about, hybridization and familial lines or genetics plays a part, where I think that Pilates has had, for lack of a better word, found like a common denominator in certain what is it, either, I don't want to say bloodlines or family history or nationality or race or something, that there's just a certain common denominator of all these people that disappear that correlate. There's a correlation among them. So is there? What is it? Yeah, if he's on the money and 2027 is the year, then we don't have to wait too long before we finally get that wow moment. Talk about a wow moment, right? Either that, what, and it's the same thing. And sometimes you hope for it, and then other times you're like, okay, when. Remember, I was alive. I was an adult in Y2K, year 2000, end of the world. The computers will not be able to accept the 2000. Society will collapse because the economy will collapse, because everything will collapse because the Y2K, that year 2000, they made a bunch of movies about it. Nothing happened. Like, nothing. Yeah, I want to say, as a matter of fact, really, what the event that really, if I want, for lack of a better word, pushed us or pulled us into the 21st century, as far as, especially in the United States, was the 9/11. That really was like, what? That was an event that, God, nobody had experienced. Maybe unless you were alive during the bombing of Pearl Harbor, but that was some talk about something to mark the beginning. And then there was not as significant, but the other day I was watching I think it was an episode of Ancient Aliens, and they were talking about the Mayan, or was it the Mayan or the Aztec calendar for 2012, because obviously the show was prior to 2012, And it was talking about, how they were excellent astronomers, and there was, in other words, they had a complex understanding. There was a Mayan calendar of mathematics and astronomy and all this stuff, and that 2012 was supposed to be D-Day. It was supposed to be the December 21st, 2012. All right. And it was, for lack of a better word, whether you want to say it was accurate or, I don't know, promoted as being apocalyptic. It was like, oh, like it's the end of the world. Something catastrophic was going to happen. Nothing happened. Right. Nothing happened. Right. It came in. And by the way, if you go through history, there's always been a bunch of cults and leaders of cults, which, by the way, have convinced their followers that on a certain date and time, the world's coming to an end or something's happening. And unfortunately, some of them have even done away with themselves in group, in mass, because they believe this leader so much that a certain date and time, that's it. We're going somewhere else. We're going with the aliens, or we're gonna what? Nothing ever happens. Nothing happens. That's what I'm saying. This 2027. I wish it did. It's like let's get this out of the way. But but at the same time, it's like, will it ever happen? Or are there even extraterrestrials? And other people going, Marlene, how could you deny that? Of course there's ETs. You always have to keep an open mind. What if they were here and they left? And they're not around anymore? Like for all the shows of ancient aliens, I'll use as an example. Oh, we have this statue and this painting and the little thing in the background. What if they left and they're like, all right, we're out of here. I'll let them blow themselves up. Or what if they've never been here? What if they've never been here? All right. And I know there's people going, no, all these, even ancient civilizations who have these creation stories, and they talk about people from the stars and blah, 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 blah. Like, why not? Maybe these storytellers were great imagination. They're going to give their origin stories or their deities powers that as simple humans you're not going to have, because otherwise why would you believe that this creation / deity is more special than you are? So you give it powers that humans normally don't have, such as the power of flight, a bunch of stuff. Now can you imagine if that was ever the truth, if somehow that was proven? There is no such thing as an ET visitation. The incident at Roswell, all these other things were masking. I'm not denying that people have seen things, whether it's unidentified flying objects or whatever. I'm not saying that. That's masking something else. As in human in origin is what I'm saying, not something off planet. Man, see that would get me really upset. That would get me really upset, because that would be the ultimate manipulation of humanity. If that ever turned out to be the case. No. And then you ask yourself, well, again, and I always come back to the same thing, which is, why are we so interesting? What is it about us? But maybe I'll get an answer in my lifetime, and maybe I won't. But in the meantime, I will see what we can find out. We'll keep on talking to people. So till next time, please don't forget to sign up for my newsletter on Substack. Go to mppellicer.com. Go to miamighostchronicles.com. They're all on the same website. You can find links to everything there. Videos, MP3 files, stories, articles, new ones, old ones. I've got everything on there. I've got everything stored, by the way. All my stuff is on hard drive. All right. just a little bit. I don't trust technology kind of thing. Yeah, I've got all my materials on a hard drive besides being uploaded there. So, but you can find everything there. All right. And let's see. Like I said, we're sliding into 2025, and like I said, I can't believe it's been what 25 years since Y2K. Incredible. All right, guys. Till next time, please come back. Thank you for stopping by. I've got a lot of great guests. As a matter of fact, this is the end of season 16. All my other shows are going to be jumping into season 17 of Stories of the Supernatural. So, till next time, take care.